Let's see, there's strawberries and blueberries. Ooh, there's pineapple.
What are you doing?
Look, it's Braum's new strawberry poppy seed chicken salad. And toasted almonds, spinach, and of course chicken on a bed of romaine lettuce.
There are poppy seeds, of course.
And poppy seed dressing drizzled on top of everything.
You just asked for a Braum's strawberry poppy seed salad?
It's strawberry poppy seed chicken salad.
Oh, forgot the chicken.
Ha, they won't. It's strawberry poppy seed chicken salad, now at your neighborhood Braum's.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dodger Dialogue presented by Braum's Ice Cream and Dairy. I'm Alex Friedman. We are pleased to be joined this week with former Oklahoma City Dodgers manager Bill Haselman, currently serving as the managerial coordinator within the Los Angeles Dodgers player development system. Bill was the manager in Oklahoma City 2016, 17, and 18, which included a couple of division titles as well as getting to the PCL finals. A lot of wins, a lot of great memories. And he joins us now from his home in the Seattle area. Haas, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely, Alex. Yeah, those were some fun years, man. A lot of good players, a lot of fond memories. I love that city. I see it in the background, behind you there, and boy, it brings back a lot of good memories.
And we'll get to some of those later on in this conversation. But first and foremost, as we mentioned, you and your family make your home in the Seattle area, and that was basically the first big hotspot in terms of coronavirus and COVID-19. How have things been for you and your family so far, and what's kind of the general outlook in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, you're right. It was a big outbreak in the retirement homes and nursing homes, and that's where it really hit hard at first. But the governor has been very strict up here from the beginning. We just opened up phase 2, and it's been just like everybody, it's been frustrating at times, staying at home and barely going out, other than the store or something. But it's been fine. I mean, we've adjusted and adapted to it, and I think you have to respect the scientists to a certain degree. You have to respect what they're saying and how this thing spreads. And a lot of people up here wear masks. I wear one included. It's an unfortunate situation, but I think, I try to listen to the doctors and the scientists. That's the guys I take my cue from. So hopefully their guidance will be able to get us through it.
Well, and of course, following that guidance can help pave the way for the Major League Baseball season to finally get underway. At the time we're recording this, things are still on track for a late July start. Players will be reporting to their modified spring trainings coming up next week. Of course, by the time this airs, that could have already happened by now. But I guess first, your reaction, you're pretty much a baseball lifer to finally hear that there would be a season, and your reaction when that all developed.
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really happy that they were able to at least get the initial agreement back in March going. I know they had their differences, that's the owners and players during that time. But it was really nice to see the game return here, and hopefully it does return. Hopefully the spikes and stuff doesn't do anything to deter that. But God, just to get back out there and watch some games, and I mean, I guess no fans can be in the seats, but to be able to watch them on TV and have something to cheer for, I think a lot of people need that.
A longtime player, longtime coach. What are maybe some of the biggest challenges you think everyone's going to have to go through in order to execute a season?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to listen to the guidelines. Some of the things I've read, I mean, it's very difficult for like baseball players to do. No high fives, chewing gum and spitting and the tobacco and this and that. I mean, a lot of those things are things that they've been doing for a long time. So to give up that kind of stuff and hugs and like a walk-off home run, nobody will be at home plate. It's almost hard to think about that because emotions take over sometimes. And I just don't know how that's going to be policed, because the excitement of certain plays, you almost can't help yourself. So I think as long as everybody listens to the guidelines, and to the best of their ability, stay away from, the teammates the best they can. I mean, they're going to have to really get used to doing that. And maybe the spring training for the 3 weeks before the season starts they'll be practicing that and adopting that into their everyday routine. So hopefully that in itself helps a little bit when the season starts. But I think it's going to be difficult. I do.
And I think certain guys who are just so used to doing their routine a certain way are going to have to modify that. Restrictions on how long before a game the clubhouse opens, where guys can get treatment, restrictions on hot tubs, cold tubs. I'm afraid it could lead to a lot of injuries to start off. Hopefully I'm wrong, but we'll just have to wait and see. Another thing that I wanted to bring up with you, with potentially new change here in the 2020 season, is the extra innings rule. And I've seen all these people on social media deriding it. And I said, look, I was just like you 2 years ago, but guess what? I watched it and I actually like it. And I think it's beneficial. You've managed games under that system. For someone who has been in that position, give us your opinion on it. And again, want to make sure everyone knows it's not going to be used in the playoffs. It's just for the regular season, because it turned me into a convert when I thought when it was first introduced, I never would like it.
Yeah, I think actually during these times with the COVID-19, I think it's a really good thing because the games are definitely going to end quicker. I don't know if we even went over 11 innings that whole season with that rule.
There's been one game in 2 seasons that's gone 12.
Yeah.
For Oklahoma City. 12.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing. It seems like, at least the season I did it, it seems like so many, like 2 or 3 runs would be scored.
Yeah.
Instead of that one. But I like it for, especially for this season. I'm glad they're not doing it in the playoffs. I don't think that would be right because a team with depth in the bullpen and stuff, you want to be able to, those teams should be able to win the game the right way. Maybe if they did it during the regular season in the future to make games go quicker, if that's what people want, it would be fine. But I would definitely get rid of it in the playoffs all the time. I would never allow that in the playoffs. So when I was doing that a couple times, so now with the new rules, everybody's going to have a DH. So it's going to be a lot easier when that DH makes the last out. There's no double switch. I got caught in the beginning double switching the pitcher out, and then my pitcher had to go run at second base before he pitched. So that's what kind of caught me by surprise. And so then I learned to double switch him out a spot before that so that wouldn't happen. So it's always a learning curve and figuring out what to do, but they won't have to worry about that because of the DH.
And they did change that in 2019 that you could make a double switch and it would revert back to the player before the pitcher spot. And even though it likely, as you said, won't come up this year, in the event that it does, that will still be in place as well. You'll go back to the batter that made the final out before the pitcher spot. You just brought up the DH. As a player, you played only for American League teams during your time in the Major League. But I know you and we've had discussions. You've always enjoyed managing the National League style of games. So now with the likelihood of it, obviously it's going to be happening this year, possibly in the future as well. Your take on the potential of a universal designated hitter?
Yeah, I never thought about it as a player because that's all I was used to in the American League. And after managing, in the National League rules there in Oklahoma City, I loved it. It's just baseball. It's strategy. There's so many more moves and things you have to think about. When we played National League teams and we did that, it was great fun for me as a manager. And then when we went and played an American League team, it was almost like you're just watching the game. Yeah, of course, you're doing some things and you're preparing the bullpen and talking about that, who you're going to use. But the double switching really makes it exciting. I know it doesn't make it as exciting as a offensive game because pitchers are striking out a lot and stuff, but you have bunts, you have moving runners, you have to pinch hit. Everybody on the team gets to play pretty much every night. And for a manager, that's a great thing when you're sitting some guys 2 or 3 nights in a row. They might be double switched in the 5th inning and now they're playing half the game. They don't feel like they didn't play. So there's a lot of rewards to that part of it for a manager to keep guys happy, keep them playing. And the game itself, I just love the game with the double switching and with the National League rules. So I really hope that the DH for the rest of this season, implement it all the way through, doesn't hold over next year into the next.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I have a feeling that that could change in the next round of collective bargaining. But yeah, I think that it is different. But the way that you have it now with two leagues, I think I like it, because if you like one, you can watch one. If you like the other, you can watch the other. It's a nice compromise, but we'll see if it ends up sticking like that. Something else I wanted to get your opinion on is as it pertains to this major league season is I'm a little surprised that Major League Baseball has left it up to each state and city if they're going to allow fans or not. And I'm not even going to dive into the whole health issue here. It's more of, to me, that could be a competitive advantage where you really know that there are going to be certain states that are not going to allow that. I know it wouldn't be full capacity. You wouldn't have 50,000 screaming fans at one place and none at the other. But I know players feed off it, having some fans more than others, different atmospheres. How do you feel? I mean, do you think that could be a potential competitive advantage if some teams are allowed to have fans and others aren't?
Yeah, I do for sure. Being the place won't be packed and real noisy and stuff, I think that kind of helps. But I really think it should be a universal rule. I mean, governors disagree all the time, and we've seen that with certain states opening and other ones staying closed longer. So they're going to definitely make their own decision on whether fans can come or not. So I definitely think baseball should step in and make it a universal thing.
Want to also get your opinion on, there's a lot of labor strife leading up to having an agreement to play this year. As a player, you went through what's probably the most widely known instance of a work stoppage in baseball between the 94 and 95 seasons. What are some of the, I guess, similarities and differences? Of course, there's the huge difference of this being a pandemic that you saw from now and when you were a player back in the mid-90s.
Well, the biggest similarity would probably be just the, not being able to get on the same page and figure it out. Just the differences that they have. And I kind of think and obviously, like you said, the pandemic, but I think the pandemic here and with what's gone on in these last 2 months is kind of like I'm thinking maybe when the agreement's up after next season, they've addressed a lot of the problems kind of already, which might make, the agreement happen where we're not going through this a year and a half from now. So I try to look at it like in a positive way where they're hashing through all this stuff that each side likes and doesn't like. But I think it's going to help in the future because they have a starting point and they already know a lot of stuff. So as bad as it's been with that, the pandemics also shut down every other sport. So it's not like our sport's just been shut down because of them not getting on the same page. They're coming back when they feel like they can come back in a safe manner. So, it's kind of like a little head start for the negotiating for the new bargaining agreement. That's how I kind of look at it.
Well, let's shift gears now from talking about the current season and situation back to your time here managing the team in Oklahoma City, which you referenced at the very beginning. As we mentioned, all 3 years were winning seasons. A lot of great players who are established themselves in the major leagues, ranging from Max Muncy to Walker Buehler to Cody Bellinger and a host of others. You look back at your time here in Oklahoma City, and I do have a couple of maybe specific instances I'll ask you about here in a little bit, but just kind of some of your fonder memories that come to you off the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, just, first of all, calling guys in my office and telling them going to the big leagues, because that's the ultimate thing. And I remember being a player in Oklahoma City. I remember being in my other AAA teams when that call came, and it's a dream come true. And to be able to tell them that, and that's the only level, well, that's the level that that's told to them the most. I mean, they're going from AAA to the big leagues. So occasionally it happens in AA, but that is the most rewarding thing in the world, to be able to do that. And sometimes it's a 2:00 in the morning phone call. But regardless, that is the best thing. But other things is like the 2016 season was a special season. Getting to the championship, losing to El Paso was tough, but we had a heck of a team. We had a heck of a bunch. We had a core of leaders on that team that made my job very simple. We had the Segadin, the Hassens, the Culbersons, those guys, Johnson, Barnes, those guys were just special guys that got along really well and had a confidence about them that you knew you were going to win. I mean, it was really good. And then a couple years after that, in 18, the way we came back against Colorado Springs it almost felt like we won a championship.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It almost felt the feeling of that, just getting to the playoffs and beating them the way we did with 2 consecutive doubleheaders, and watching how the guys came together and not give up. Because in that level, a lot of guys are like, getting ready to go to the big leagues or doing what they're going to do. And it's not that they don't want to win, but they, like I said in the beginning, getting to the big leagues is the ultimate goal. And that's what makes the minor league so hard sometimes, because you want to win, but they want to get there too. And I don't blame them to want to get there first before anything else. So those 2 years and calling guys up are just special memories, really good memories.
Well, you touched on probably the 2 most memorable moments, one of which was advancing to the championship series in 2016, an incredible Game 5 against Nashville, and then the other was the Colorado Springs ordeal and come back and having to win basically 4 games in 2 days on the road to be able to go to the playoffs with no margin for error. We've had a couple of guys on recently before you. Had Logan Baucom on a couple weeks ago, Okoye Dixon on last week to talk about some of those games. I don't know if I want to necessarily make you choose one over the other, but maybe does one feat maybe edge out the other in terms of accomplishments between that 2016, not only winning Game 5, but back-to-back elimination games to get to the championship series, as opposed to the what happened at the end of the regular season in Colorado Springs in 2018.
Yeah, I think Okoye Dixon's home run is the topper. I really do. I remember being in that dugout. I believe it was the 8th inning.
8th inning, yeah.
Yeah, it was the 8th inning, and we were down a couple runs, and he hit that home run, and we went up, and it was just, because you're never giving up, and you always think you can come back, but you also know you're running out of innings, and you're running out of outs. And, I mean, he came up, and he had a hell of a season that year, and just capped it off with that home run that just – I'll never forget that home run. I think that is the single biggest accomplishment we had. And it's too bad when we went on to the championship, he pulled his quad in Game 1, so we didn't even have him. And everybody loses players, so that's no excuse not to win. But when you get the injuries there like that, that hurt.
So let's shift now to moving from managing not only AAA, but at the lower levels of the minor leagues with both the Dodgers and before that the Angels and the Rangers, to the role you started last year, which is being a managerial coordinator, which very unique, I think, not only to the Dodgers organization, but in all minor league baseball. And to give fans a little bit of a primer within player development systems, you have the hitting coordinator, you have the pitching coordinator, you have the defense and base running coordinator, and that's pretty much the person that oversees the instruction of those areas throughout the entire minor league system. So now what your job is to really kind of serve as a mentor for the managers. Let's first discuss how that unique position really first came about and why it intrigued you to want to fill it.
Yeah, at the end of the 18 season, Clayton called me and we talked. He's a field coordinator, and we were just talking about like what I'd like to do, and we were just shooting ideas around, and they came up with this idea. And I just thought it was a great opportunity to be able to talk to some young managers and just, teach them the best I can teach them from what I've learned from managers I've had, from what I've learned in my experiences, just about leadership and what we can do for these young players that we have and make them better men, in life, and also, obviously baseball players. But it's just an opportunity to be able to guide them. And a lot of times when you come into managing, you're very unsure of yourself with things. You second guess yourself at lower levels. You're not sure how to talk to players in the clubhouse. One of my strengths, I think, is talking to players and building those relationships. And I think that's a really important thing to do, just in life in general, to build relationships. Because, when I'm able to do that with players and I can't play a guy for 2 or 3 days, it's very easy to talk to them and they understand it. But if I'm distant and I don't have that relationship, now all of a sudden I'm the bad guy, and it starts hurting the team chemistry, I think. So those kind of things, teaching them that and, making them understand that, I think is a really valuable, tool that we can teach all of them and make our players better, in the future.
So going through it last year, I guess anything that you encountered, good or bad, maybe you weren't expecting to because it was a new position and everyone was navigating it through it at the same time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of went as planned, I think. I just kind of, you know, just dipped my toe in the water, so to speak, in the beginning. I just took it easy and kind of saw what was going on. I didn't want to come into a place and have managers think that I'm judging them and, second guessing every move they make. I established that with them early. And we've had discussions throughout. We've had Zoom calls throughout this pandemic. And I think what I mentioned earlier about building a relationship with a player, the same thing I'm doing with these managers. So they trust me and they know when I come into town, I'm not sitting here just watching them like, what are you doing? I get how hard it can be. I get picking the wrong guy to pinch hit, or why did you pinch hit, or why didn't you leave this pitcher in? It's really hard. And the one thing I did as a manager, I didn't forget how hard it was to play. And that's what I wanted to do as a as a manager to managers, not forget how hard it was to manage a game and to deal with players in the clubhouse. So I wanted to make sure that once I do that, I put myself in their shoes. I mean, it's like if you forget how hard the game was, then I think that then you start becoming distant and it just isn't the same. You have to really care and have that empathy towards it.
Well, you mentioned that the work has continued even during the pandemic via Zoom calls. So when you have those discussions, is it more kind of focused on leadership and have thematic elements? Because I know sometimes it's hard to come up with specific examples when you're not actually living it at the time. So how have been these essentially sessions been happening over Zoom, and what kind of things have you been discussing with the other coaches in the organization?
Yeah, well, we started out, all the coaches have Zoom meetings with their teams. So I just checking in, seeing how that's going. And I would have the managers on once a week with in the beginning, just talking about that, asking them questions. And then I'd have some guests on it, Dave Roberts on, talking to them, Bob Guerin, Raul Ibanez. I'll bring on people to talk and have them ask questions about what they went through as players, what they liked in managers, what they didn't like in managers. The whole thing. We're trying to make everybody better and understand everything. Now we've changed focus on with all the stuff that's happened in the news. We're having discussions about the Black Lives Matter and about how to handle players and talk to players to better understand it and for us to educate ourselves. So we're trying to be as diligent as we can and try to learn as much as we can so we're better leaders amongst our young guys.
Last year and what was going to be this year, manager in Oklahoma City is Travis Barbary. We've had him on before. I know some of the fans have gotten to know him. Incredible person, great leader. But he returned to managing after a long time as the catching coordinator. And I know, obviously, you guys have a relationship going back for, your previous roles as well in the organization. What kind of things did you see from Travis, how he was able to maybe grow and readjust as last season went on?
Yeah, I think he was like going into it, he didn't know what to expect because he hasn't been there for so long. And it's a little bit like you're kind of a little bit nervous and like what's going to happen when I go in. But I thought he did a really good job just adjusting to the situation.
Yeah.
He's very even keeled, mild mannered, which you need to be at that level. He listens to people. He cares about people. The way he talks to them in the clubhouse and stuff. And he also isn't afraid to ask questions to try to get better himself. He doesn't have all the answers, just like none of us have all the answers. And if we're not willing to reach out and let other people lead and let them take over, then we're never going to get better as a person, because other people can teach us how to lead in certain situations, even though we're the so-called leader of the team. So for him to have the confidence to be able to let other people do that, and and I saw players that respected him, they liked him, and that's important. And they played hard, and that's all that matters.
Very well said. We're kind of winding down with our time here, and I want to ask you a question about your playing days. And I kind of feel foolish in the years I've known you. I really never put it together until I was watching the special on the MLB Network recently about Ken Griffey Jr. And there you were at one point in the background playing for the Mariners, and you were his teammate. Not only Ken Griffey Jr.'s teammate, but probably at his peak and one of the best peaks we've seen with any baseball player there in the early to mid-'90s. So what was it like playing with Ken Griffey Jr. during that time?
I mean, I felt like I didn't belong in the same league as him. And it was hard for me to believe I was even on his team when I first was there. I mean, his talent was the best talent I've ever played with. And I played with a lot of good players. I really have a lot of Hall of Famers and a lot of MVP type players. But his raw talent to be able to do anything on that field, he could do at any given time. He was special. I was there for the 8 home runs he hit in a row consecutively to Ty Mattingly. I remember being in the dugout on that 8th night against Minnesota. I wasn't even playing, and my palms were like sweating for him. It really was something. And he hit the home run and tied it, and we couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just too bad. I wish he'd have been in more postseason play and World Series play, because he just didn't have a big taste of that. I wish he'd have stayed in Seattle. I wish they would have found a way to keep him here. I feel like when he left, he became more irrelevant. Like, it just, not that he didn't matter, but he was a special player here, and people loved him up here. They still do. They love him, but he is far and away the most talented player that I ever played with.
And I think what you just said about him, unfortunately, not being on the postseason stage as much as you ideally would like for baseball as a whole, is we've seen the same thing with Mike Trout right now with the Angels, and hopefully that a lot of the Dodger fans watching this won't maybe not like me hearing me say that, but hopefully he'll have a chance to get some more exposure on a national stage as well. Well, again, Bill Haselman, so glad you could join us here today. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. Guy who's I've learned so much from, a mentor, a friend, someone who deserves to be on a big league coaching staff somewhere. We're happy to have him in the Dodgers organization, but like I said, just a tremendous baseball mind that it should be as part of a big league staff, or really whatever you want to do as far as I'm concerned. But I know you're hoping to get back there one day. So thank you so much, not only for joining us today, but everything you've done without the organization throughout the last several years. Thanks, Alex. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And again, remember to join us. We'll have more Dodger Dialogue coming up within the coming weeks. This has been Dodger Dialogue presented by Braum's Ice Cream and Dairy.